Hi guys, well, if you're watching this video, then chances are you ordered one of our weaving kits. So I want to show you what's inside the weaving kit and how to do the project. So you have this little burlap bag, and if you check out any of our sewing kits that we have, we use these burlap bags as the fabric. So this would be good to hold on to. If you ever purchase one of those, you can make something extra with it. And when you look inside, you are going to have a loom, and this is a weaving loom, and on it's going to be a variety of different yarns. So you might not get this exact variety, but you're going to get at least one variegated yarn and one or two different kinds of chunky yarns, and then we have some regular yarn as well. And another thing that you're going to get in your kit is this little plastic bag. That's not the exciting part. And when you open it, inside it, you are going to have another yarn, and this is going to be held separately. You're going to have two little sticks, and that's how we're going to finish off our weaving, and a weaving needle with a huge eye so it's easy to thread. So right now I'm going to show you how to get started. Okay, so one thing that is not included in the kit, but you are going to need, is a pair of scissors. So when you get your loom, you're going to take all of the yarn off. Okay, so I just unraveled all of the yarn, and I'm going to hold that aside for now. And what we're going to use first is the white yarn that came with the package. So if you look at your loom, the top and the bottom of the loom, so up here, you'll see these little notches. And down here, you're also going to see these little notches. And that's where the yarn is going to go. So for the beginning part, we're going to work on the vertical sections of the loom, the vertical pieces of yarn, and they're called the warp. So what you do with that white yarn that you got is you're going to hold a little tail at the back. Just hold it down. If you have a piece of tape, you're welcome to tape it. I'm just going to hold it. I've been doing these kinds of things for a while. And you're going to pull it through the very first section. Now what you're going to do is bring it down and go into the next piece. Now, we are not going to wrap around the back. This back of this yarn, the back of the loom, is going to stay like a cardboard. So all we're doing is going underneath, and I hold it like this. I hold it like a little and pull it up through the next half. And so when you flip it over, you'll see it's just like that. So now you're going to go all the way down, find the second part of this, and pull it through. Sorry, ignore this tail. We don't need that tail. And you're going to go back up. See the back? And you're going to do this again. And you're going to repeat this all the way till you have the entire thing filled up. So you're going to go down, bring it around the back, and back up through the front. And you're going to go all the way to the end, and you're going to do the same thing down here. So I will meet you back here when I am done adding the warp to the warp yarn to my loom. Okay, I'm at the bottom, and I did want to show you guys something. This is the part where the tail is, the side where we began. Now, I could bring this all the way back up, but I'm going to just stop here and just disregard this last little slit because I want both of my tails to be at the bottom. Just because it's my own personal preference, it's easier if they both come down at the bottom at the end for what I'm going to do with these. So, oops, it would help if I snip that. So snip off the end. And this is what your loom is going to look like. And you can, of course, can use this. We give you extra to weave with if you like. This is going to end up being the top where there's no tail. And this is going to be the bottom. And you can see on the back that there is no yarn coming through. If these tails start to get loose on you, all you have to do is you can bring them up. And throw a little piece of tape on the back of them if you want. You don't have to, it's your preference. Okay, so now let's start weaving. So I'm going to start with, I'm just going to go with the red. And you don't need to use all of this. So you can kind of start with a little bit. I did about this much. And you could switch colors. You don't have to use all the colors, you know, this whole section of red and then move to another whole section. You could do what you want, be creative. And then I'm going to weave this, not weave this. All right, now, one thing that you have to pay attention to, when you go to pull your yarn or your needle out of your loom, and you don't have to use the needle if you don't want to. I just find it a little easier. Don't pull it by the needle, because when I pull it by the needle, look what happens. It starts to slide off. So when you go to pull the yarn, what you want to do is you want to grab it here and then pull it through the loom. So when I start it, what I do is I just push a little bit through here just to hold it in place. You could just leave that in the back. It's going to be hidden when we're done. And you're going to go over, under, over, under, over, under, or over, under, over, under, over. Wait, did I say that twice? You're going to go over the first one. So my needle's on top of this first guy. Let me move this closer so you could see. And then I'm going to go under the next one. Over, under. And I'm going to be careful not to skip one. And there are patterns that you could do with weaving where you do skip one, but for this, we're just going to do the basic weaving. And if before I pull the needle through, you could see it was over, under, over, under, over, under, and so on and so forth. So now I'm going to pull my needle out, but remember, I'm going to grab onto this thread here and pull it the rest of the way through. Now, when you get to the end, I always tell my students to leave a little bit of a bubble. You don't want to pull it too tightly, and I'll show you what I mean. Because when you're weaving, you don't want this to start getting tighter and tighter and tighter, and it starts to go in. You want to make sure that these end pieces are straight and even, parallel to the edge. So now, once you're to this point, you're just going to slide this straight up to the top as far as it can go, because you want your weave to be nice and tight. So I'm going to hold this here with my thumb, and then I'm going to pull this a little bit so it's straight. Okay, so now this is the next thing. Right at the end here, you can see my yarn, my red yarn, is underneath this white warp thread. So we're going to be doing the opposite now. So if my yarn is underneath, I need to go on top. If I don't go on top and I go back underneath here, I'm just going to be pulling my yarn right back through, and it's not going to make any sense. So I'm going to go the opposite now. I'm going to go over the first one and then under the next one. And I'm going to be doing the complete opposite. And I'm going to go straight to the end, and I'm going to check, because if I get to a spot and I know that it's going the same, then I must have not done it right. So now this is the part where I'm going to tell you about the bubble. So you pull it, pull it, pull it, pull it. And now right when you get to the end, you don't want a huge bubble like this, but you want to leave a little bit. And you can always pull it tighter. Let me grab this. We'll slide it all the way up. And now I'm going to pull just a very little bit. Remember, I want this end piece, this end yarn, to stay straight, not to come inward. And then I slide my yarn up. Okay, now I'm going to keep going. So now I'm going to go under this. Over this. Now what I'm going to do is I will meet you back here, and I will show you how to finish off this color and add on another color. Okay, so let's say that you pulled this and it's starting to get real tight like that. All you have to do is go back in and stick your needle through, and you could pull it back out a little bit. Now you may have to keep going depending on how many stitches you pulled in like that. You may have to go backwards. So I'm just going to follow my yarn, droop to there, yank this up, make a big loop, and then go to the next row and yank this side back, and you keep working back and forth until you loosen it all up. Because like I said, you don't want to get it to go like this. Another thing, let's say I was weaving and I didn't pay attention. I'm going over, under, and something happened, and I went over two, and I realized that, hey, something's not right here, because I was over here and over here. So you don't have to pull back all these stitches out, but what you could do is you can either do like a little U-turn here and go to the part where you think you made the mistake, and then over, under, over, under, over, under. So I should be over this and under that. So it's pretty forgiving. And like I said, there are stitches where you could do the whole thing over 2, under 2, over 2, under 2, or change it around. There's different patterns that you can do if you want. So when a weaving is done right, you shouldn't see these warp threads here. You can see these little dots of white. Really, you could push this up where you don't really see that part, because it's nice and tight. And you don't want to push just the sides up or just the center up. You want it to be pretty horizontal. Okay, when I'm finished with this, what I can do with this yarn is I personally like to hide my tail. I don't like any tails hanging out in the back. I like the back to look just as nice as the front. So what I do is I go with my yarn, my needle with my yarn, where this white warp thread is underneath here. It's in between all these. So what I do is I stick my needle in probably about 3 or 4 stitches. And I'm twisting it as I go because it's easier. And then I'm going to pull it out of the back. So see what I did in the back? I went in between that. And I'm going to hold on to it and I'm going to get it through. I don't want to bunch everything up, so I'm kind of spinning it and holding it in place. And I'm going to slide this string right up, just till I get it where I want it. Then I can go in and I can trim this, and it's hidden and you don't see it, and it looks pretty. All right, so this is scrap, and now I'm going to move on to the next color. So the next color I'm going to do is, I like this variegated yarn. I think it's pretty. Another thing you could do is kind of plan it out ahead of time. So you might say, I'm doing red first, then I'm going to do this, then maybe, let's see, do I want to do lime or yellow? Lime next, and you know, plan it out that way if you want. I love this variegated yarn, so I'm going to do a bunch of this, but I want to make sure I have enough to do this in a couple places. You're going to have enough yarn in this kit to do at least 2 nice and tight weavings. You might be able to do 3. But this loom is perfect because you could just reuse it and reuse it again. You could even make your own loom out of recyclables, which I like to do a lot, because all you have to do is just cut some notches in the top of a piece of cardboard and at the bottom. You do want to make sure it's a sturdy box. If you're going to use something like a cereal box, you know, glue 2 pieces together of the cardboard, and you can make a loom like that. Okay, so to start this piece, because I want to hide my tail, I'm going to go down now through a few of these stitches at the beginning. So I see I'm just sliding it down. I mean, you can just start it if you want to, but I like to keep my tails hidden. I like the way it looks. Now, you just want to be careful when you get to the end of this that you don't pull it right through, because then you have to do it all over again. So let me keep going. There are people that knot it on. There are people, like I said, that just do this part at the very end. I probably should have went down a little bit of more yarn. More thread. I'm gonna hide this back here. Okay, so I don't want to pull that purple through, so I'm gonna be really careful to hold on to this when I do this. All right, so now where do I go next? Because all these look like they're over. But if I look here, this was under, this was over. So now remember, you have to do the opposite. So I'm gonna go in here, and I'm going to go under the first one, over the second one. And I'm going to keep looking at my pattern to make sure it is even. So I'm going to finish this, and I will stop you when I get to the chunky yarn that I want to add and show you how to do that next. Okay, I did stop for 1 second because in your kit, you are going to have some beads, some little pony beads. Now, I am going to plan on saving 6 of them for the bottom, because when we get to the end, we're going to divide these into sections of 2 and tie them. So I want to put 1 bead on each of the sections at the bottom. So then I have a few left over that I do want to incorporate a little bit into the middle here. So what I'm going to do is, let's figure out. I'm going to space them where I want them to go. So you don't have to do it this way. You don't have to add them to the middle. Do I want to do yellow or do I want to add purple? I think I'm going to add the purple on top of the yellow. All right, so the needle does not fit through the pony beads, but I know I want to add this clear bead right here. So I'm going to weave up to that spot. I'm going to make sure I'm not pulling it too tightly. And I know I want this bead right here, so I'm just going to slide my needle off, put my bead on, stick that guy right where I want it to go. And I'm just going to finish weaving this with my hands instead of using the needle so I don't have to keep switching. And continue. So now I'm under this one, over this one. Now I can't put this bead on this one if it's under. So I'm going to move this guy right on top of this bead, right on top of this string. And if you have to twist it a little bit to get it through, but it's not that difficult. Okay. And then I'm going to go, remember, I'm still doing the opposite. So right here, if you could see where I'm pointing, I was over last time. Now I'm going to be under. So don't skip over that. I'm under that. Over this one. Do I want to put this one right here? I guess I'll just leave it with what I'm doing. I'll put it right here. Sometimes I change my mind as I go. Okay, then we got that. And then we'll finish off this row. So under this guy, over this guy. Hopefully you could see with my hand in the way. Perfect. And I don't want to stop this yarn here. I do want to finish the row below it. And then I'll meet you back here in a little bit because I want to show you how to add the chunky yarns that you have in your kit, because that adds a nice texture to your weaving and it makes it look really cool. So I will meet you back here for that. I decided to add this cool purplish color next to the blue. We also have a medium texture yarn. I am not going to attempt to put this through the needle. We don't need to. It is really chunky, so what I'm going to do is I am going to separate this, and this is way more than what I'll need. So I think, let me see, I'm going to try and do 3 rows of this. And this fills up your weaving pretty quickly because it is so chunky. Maybe I'll do 4. All right, so I'm just gonna kind of eyeball it because I know I want to do 4 rows. Then I'll leave a little bit extra. And so for this, it really doesn't have to be opposite because it's so super chunky, but. And also, again, don't worry about the ends of this one sticking out because we can, it's just that it's textural, so you don't need to worry about that. It adds to it. Okay. So if this is going to bother you hanging out, what you could do is you could just kind of tuck it in a little bit and just, I see I still tucked it in seam path and then you don't see the ends. That's what I think looks nice. 1. So I'm going to still do the opposite here. So I'm at the end. Let's snip that off, and I'm just gonna weave it in and leave it where it falls, where it finishes. But I want to make sure that this extra piece is just laying towards the back more than the front, behind it. Okay. And there's your chunky piece of yarn. I'm gonna go in with this yarn next because this is chunky too. I actually like this one. Now, because I laid that last row in and I stopped it here, it is going to be a little bit off when you weave it, but just choose a path and just go for it and continue. So I'm going to start under, over, under, over, under, over, under, over, under. See, like right here, it doesn't look right, and that's okay, because once we tighten this up a little bit, it'll fall right into place. Now this end of this guy here, it is, probably could fit through here. Can I? Yeah. All right, I'm gonna try and tuck this up through here because I don't want to see that. So I'm gonna tuck it in the same way I did the last one. Pull it through that. So I pulled it right through this little purple loop here. Okay, and I'm gonna keep going. I'm going to finish my weaving, and then when I get done to the end, I will show you how to finish this off. Now with this loom, you could choose, you could leave it at this height if you want and have longer tassels. It doesn't matter. I'm going to go probably down to about here and leave these tails down at the end, and I will stop before I get to the end so I can show you how to finish it off. Okay, so I reached the end of my project. As far down as I wanted to go. I don't want to go all the way to the bottom because I like to have a little bit of a tassel, but you could definitely go a little further than what I did. Remember at the beginning, we had this tail. I'm going to pull this tail out now. And what I want to do is go in. Now, let me see, is this going to fit around? It should. I want to go in and tuck that away. Nope, it doesn't. All right, so what you could do is I'm putting my needle through the hoops, through the loops again, like I did last time. I just slid it right through the center little tube there. I'm gonna stick this guy in here. And then I'm gonna pull this right through. So I do hold on to this because I don't wanna and that guy's tucked away also. And you'll see when I take this off the loom that the back side is going to be pretty much just about as nice as the front side. So now, the top ones, the top loops here, you don't want to cut off. You just want to pull them off the loom and leave them as they are. I'll show you what to do. You have 2 sticks in your kit, little tiny sticks. You can actually use real sticks outside. That always looks really cool because it adds to like the rustic look of the weaving. But for this, I'm just going to go with what's in the kit. Oopsie daisy. Now these looms, like I said, could be reused again and again and again. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to fit my stick in and I'm going to put it between each loop. You could decorate this stick with markers. I would use permanent markers only because the regular markers, like Crayola washable ones, they could transfer onto the yarn, and I don't want my yarn to be colored. So now what I do is the bottom, I'm going to slide this up to the top. So I'm going to push this all up because I want this to be tight around the stick, these loops. So I'm just sliding them up a little bit at a time. And I'm going to work from the top on my all the way down to the bottom. Keep working it. I'm doing section by section for the most part. They should be pretty easy to slide though. And I'm also trying to cover up any of those white warp threads with my weft threads, which are the horizontal ones. All right, I'm gonna make sure it's laying flat too. Not too bad. And this little guy we can always tuck in. All right, so now it's tighter around here, so it's not gonna fall out. So now I'm gonna show you what to do with the bottom. So like I said, they're in pairs. Each of the loops, for the most part, are in pairs. The only difference is the ends. So what I'm gonna do is pull these off. Like I said, save this for another project, the loom. So I could tie these all where the loops are, but we have these two little extra pieces here. So what I'm gonna do with the ends is I'm gonna cut one loop and I'm gonna take two together and one by itself. And another way is to put these all together, but just pretend it's one strand and do one big fat knot. I like it this way. I think it looks better. You just wanna make sure that you're holding the knot up high. I got a blue guy in there. Let me pull this blue guy out. Get up there, blue guy. Okay. Because what this does is it lays it flat down. It doesn't pop up out of the side. So I'm gonna keep going doing it that way. So I'm gonna cut my loop and I'm gonna tie this around. And when you pull these knots up, you want to make sure that your last row is still horizontal. You don't want it to get too... And you can give these a little haircut so they're the same length. Now I could leave it just like this. I remember I wanted to add a few of the beads at the bottom. I did. So I'm gonna see if I can get all 3 strands onto one of these pony beads. Let's see what we can do. Can you? Yay! So you can do that, and then you'd have to knot it one more time. And we'll see what that looks like. It's hard with the chunky, with the 3 end ones. So you can add beads like this on the whole entire tassel. Another thing you could do is you can just take one strand and you could tie a bead around the bottom like that and let it dangle. I kind of like them tucked in like that. So I'm gonna go ahead, I'll show you one more and I'm gonna finish this up. So I gave it a little twist if it's hard to get on the pony bead. Thread that pony bead. And then slide it all the way up to the knot you first made, and we're making a second knot. Runaway bead. Okay, and there you go. So I'm gonna keep going to the end and I will see you when I get back. So here it is, our beautiful woven wall hanging. So you can tie 2 strings on it if you want, and make a little loop to hang it up. Another thing you could do is just, I stick a thumbtack right on my wall and just push it through there. But I hope you like it. Be sure to check out our other kits that we offer. Plus we have some free online art lessons too that doesn't require a kit. Thanks for watching and happy making.